At the foot of the mountain between Colombia and Venezuela is a small village. It lies on one of the most high-risk borders in Latin America. Cuestecitas, alongside its 4,000 inhabitants, the fuel container reigns in this town. They are everywhere. Cans of petrol are sold illegally on most roadsides. But here, fuel is contraband. High-quality fuel is purchased on the other side of the border in Venezuela. There, it only costs 1 cent per liter and is resold for 30 times its original price in Colombia, a real bargain for the cartels. The police leave the low-key street sellers alone, targeting instead the more serious traffickers, like Jose Luis, who goes in search of his contraband fuel in this modified four-wheel drive truck.
O sea, es más resistente, tiene mejor máquina, mejor estructura para los muelles, la platina, o sea, lo que es la carrocería. Es un carro que no se queda en ninguna de las trochas porque es doble tracción, es 4x4. Tiene un refuerzo excelente para la carga porque con este refuerzo se le hace para que el carro no baje mucho. Ellos vienen con capacidad de 1,5 toneladas y uno le hace este refuerzo y ya le mete uno la capacidad para 3 toneladas. Ya. Hay que llevar buen carro, que ni que uno va a pensar que se va a varar ni que lo va a dejar uno botado. Sí, ya tiene que tener.
Jose Luis is leaving to collect 4,000 liters of fuel in Venezuela.
Dale.
Aquí vamos rápido porque es que esta es una zona muy caliente con la cuestión de la policía. Porque es que la policía, estos carros, nosotros estamos haciendo el transporte ilegal.
¿Y por qué hacen esto?
Porque esto es lo que nos da la vida a nosotros todos los días, o sea, el pan de cada día de nuestros hijos.
If all goes well, Jose Luis should arrive at his destination in an hour and a half. However, today, nothing will go as planned. The border between Colombia and Venezuela is situated in the north of Latin America and is made up of 2,200 kilometers worth of roads. It's a dangerous and uncontrollable region where conflict between armed groups, traffickers, and soldiers is intense. Cameras are not welcome here. All this trafficking is fed by the current state of poverty in Venezuela, a country in crisis.
Mire cómo andamos, sin zapatos, sin ropa, sin nada. Todo sube allá diariamente, una harina pan sube diario.
In 2 years, the cost of basic commodities like flour and milk has multiplied by 5 due to the collapse in fuel prices. The country's entire economy depends on the black gold market. Every day, thousands of Venezuelans travel to Colombia to buy things they can no longer find at home.
Necesitamos comida, mucha de nutrición ahorita.
Although the supermarket shelves are empty, fuel is the one resource that is always available. Venezuela is home to the largest fuel reserve in the world. Since the beginning of the crisis, 1/3 of their fuel stock has been resold illegally in Colombia.
El contrabando es que vivo aquí en Colombia. La única manera para poder sobrevivir hay que estar vendiendo contrabando.
On the other side of the border, the most sought-after commodity is not fuel, but water. Those most affected by the repercussions of global warming live in the middle of the Colombian desert. The Guajira people haven't seen rain in over 5 years. The women and children walk for hours just to get their hands on a few drops of water.
Nos morimos de sed.
On this arid ground, trying to harvest crops is futile. Their herds have been completely wiped out. In order to survive, the Wayuu people have also resorted to trafficking fuel. But it's a dangerous game. In the north of Colombia, Jose Luis arrives at the border to collect the batch of contraband fuel waiting for him. Unfortunately, the police are everywhere. Jose Luis leaves the motorway to avoid them. This road is much safer. It is here that the other traffickers have placed their henchmen.
Ese muchacho que está ahí es una mosca, o sea, él es una guía, un vigilante que tenemos nosotros ahí. Para que nosotros, o sea, protegernos, es el que nos protege de la policía. Que la policía no nos caiga.
¿Y es su trabajo es estar ahí todo el día?
Sí,
Todos los gasolineros le pagan.
Sí, ese es su trabajo. Con eso se gana el día, se gana la comida diario. Ese es su sustento diario.
By doing this, Jose Luis risks 7 years in prison, as well as the confiscation of his vehicle worth 5,000 euros. One of the watchmen is missing from his post. That's strange. A few kilometers down the road, another stops to warn them. It's bad news.
¿Mirín dónde está? ¿Qué fue? Bueno. Habla. Ahí viene, ¿para qué?
Jose Luis makes a U-turn. The police are patrolling a large stretch of the road. And they don't take kindly to traffickers.
Es que la policía, la polfa colombiana está metiendo ahí a bañar las trochas y eso.
This man and women are part of a family of small-time traffickers. They don't understand why the police are jeopardizing their business. To them, this is nothing but a matter of survival.
Jefa viejo, en la casa tenemos un carro que lo volvió mierda la policía piedra, un chino. ¿Por qué no
Le rompieron los vidrios, le robaron el pasacinta, le robaron la planta, le robaron el teléfono, lo golpearon. No es justo, no es justo eso. Estamos llegando a algo demasiado grande. Está pasada la ley, está de pasada. Nos manifestamos todos los días ganándonos la comida de nuestros hijos. Como están viendo. No le quitamos nada a nadie. Solo es trabajo. Ay.
They've been here all morning. The group of police officers and soldiers began their operation at dawn. The Taquira River has turned into a makeshift border. On the one side is Colombia, and on the other side, Venezuela.
Esas las trochas del señor Palomino, lo que están arreglando en este momento.
Just a few hours ago, a small stretch of rocks linked the two shores together. Dozens of traffickers use this passage every day. Our presence here is a problem. They ask us to leave immediately.
Si te dijeron que sí, yo ya terminé. Yo terminé, pero fue una buena entrevista.
Even the police and the army have doubled their patrols. Fuel still finds its way across the border. Traffickers are willing to take more and more risks. On the Colombian side, near the border and the Taquira River, lies the village of Juan Frio. This is a small, quiet town, or at least at first glance. Here, smuggling is a trade that passes from generation to generation. Carlos and his cousin are 20 years old. Every day, they take the same route to the edge of the village. Just a few kilometers away from the entrance to a paddy field. Carlos and his cousin don't want to get caught by the police. Venezuela is not far. Its mountains are just ahead. Carlos alerts his Venezuelan accomplices of their arrival.
Que vengan ellos, no se hagan así de frente, o se van ustedes a un ladito, ¿sí me entienden?
Carlos asks us to film from a distance because he's worried. He's not told the other traffickers that we are with him. He also just found out that there are soldiers patrolling the area. Using hand gestures, he explains the police could shoot us. Once we arrive at the meeting point, Carlos worries that he's gone too far by bringing us with him.
Mire, la vuelta arriba así calladito. Perfecto. Pero no me conoce, usted no me conoce y no me conoce, ¿listo? Me llega a reconocer. Hágase, para aparte, por ahí escondido, allá, que nadie lo vea.
He's worried about the oncoming traffickers' reaction. We hide in the bushes. But we don't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, a few silhouettes appear at the edge of the cliff. First 5, then 10, then 20, then 30. All of these men are nervous and exhausted. They've taken a huge risk to deliver this fuel. Carlos organizes the distribution of the fuel.
Esta es donde y la otra acá. La otra donde. Si es que viene 6, viene 6. Epa, la otra donde de Elías. Elías son las otras dos de Noelia. Elías. Elías. Venga. Rápido. Ahí, perro.
¿Cómo estás?
Fino, fino.
Es para 3. Cuéntame. ¿De dónde trae? Cuéntame qué es esta gasolina. ¿De dónde viene?
De Venezuela.
Cuéntame qué es
De ahí de Venezuela, de ahí de Venezuela.
Y oye, es muy peligroso para ustedes hacer esto, ¿no?
Dígame.
¿Qué arriesgan cuando hacen esto?
No, esos manes son de Francia. ¿De quién te marico?
Everything's going as planned until the leader of the Venezuelan traffickers arrives. He's aggressive. He doesn't believe that we're journalists.
No les hagan nada.
Tranquilo, mira, te lo juro que no.
No, mi viejo, eso así dicen, así sacan una trocha abajo, acá mierda me bala hoy.
Mira, te juro que no. Esto sale en mucho tiempo y nadie lo reconoce.
No lo dejes salir, no lo dejes salir. Venga, para acá, viejo.
The traffickers crowd around us to stop us from leaving.
No, piensa que yo hablé con el que vendo gasolina. Ahora sí. Bueno, vamos a partir de la camioneta, vamos a echarle candela.
After 2 hours of arguing, we managed to calm the traffickers down. They finally understand that we're not spies, that we're not there to turn them in to the authorities.
Escucha lo que vamos a hacer. Vamos a hacerle la vuelta al vago. Vamos con la cara tapada cada cual.
The death threats are forgotten. The traffickers continue their march like a colony of ants. Each individual is carrying almost 50 liters on his back. In just a few moments, 1.5 tons of fuel illegally crosses from Venezuela to Colombia. Some individuals weren't even able to afford plastic containers, so they transported their fuel in plastic bags.
Transportando, papá. Nosotros los prestamos a ellos para que llenen ahí y nos traigan.
¿Eso es todos los días?
De vez en cuando, en vez de no trabajan, no dan paso.
¿Qué hacías antes tú?
Toda la vida trabajado en esto.
¿Esto sí da un poco?
Estaba un poquito más, sí, pa. Los gastos.
The carriers earn $10 per trip, a real fortune in Venezuela.
¿Qué haces con el dinero? ¿Lo haces
Para pura comida, para más nada, eso no alcanza para más nada. La economía nos cayó todo, más de uno se ha enflacado de todo.
Mire cómo está flaco el chino, mire cómo está flaco el chino de lo que no come.
Mire cómo andamos, sin zapatos, sin ropa, sin nada. Todo sube allá diariamente, una harina pan sube diario.
Before the crisis broke out in Venezuela, all these young people had a future.
Todos tenemos bachiller, graduados, pero no hay estudios allá. El estudio es malo.
Nowadays, the only thing worth learning is resourcefulness, and it's not without risk.
Pero a ti ya te han sacado a tiros, ¿no?
Dígame.
¿Cómo así?
Nos encienden a plomo, se esconden dentro del monte y esperan que uno pase y suelta la rapa, pa. Uno corre, hueputa. Uno pierde pimpinas, pierde todo.
¿Ya te ha pasado?
Ya, 40 veces me han correteado.
¿Todo el mundo lo hace?
No todos, es para los que tienen pantalones para correr. Si no, mi hijo va preso, se lo llevan uno preso.
Back to Cuestecitas, the town where the fuel container is king. Here we again meet Jose. He's hid his truck here while awaiting the obstruction to subside. At first glance, it appears to be a normal garage, but the trucks of several other traffickers have been hidden behind the fence. These drivers have also had to stop, and each one tries to pass the time as best he can.
Exacto, reposar el tiempo un rato, aquí un rato, con los amigos, claro, para divertir a despejar la mente. Aquí en la frontera toda la mayoría comen es de eso, porque aquí no hay otra fuente de trabajo. La mayoría trabaja en Cerrejón.
Se fueron con sus cantos a alegrar otra región donde se extrae el carbón. Las noches son agitadas, ya no se escucha el tambor con el que el indio baila.
The coal mine known as Cerrejón, the largest coal deposit in the world. Those who get the opportunity to work at this mine are the most fortunate in the region. Others have no choice but to stand and watch as trains export the coal to the rest of the world. The train crosses an area that is completely void of any sign of life. In the far north of Colombia lies the Guajira Peninsula, a land of dust that belongs to the Wayuu people, one of the poorest tribes in Colombia. Olmeida is part of the Wayuu tribe. Every Sunday afternoon, a car from her community comes to pick her up and take her back to her village.
Yo voy para mi comunidad, voy a trabajar porque yo soy profesora y trabajo allá con los niños. Aquí conseguimos a los niños desnutridos. La parte central es la que está más abandonada.
1 in 3 children suffer from malnutrition in the Guajira Peninsula. Since the beginning of the year, more than 60 children have died of starvation and dehydration. To try to survive, some have built makeshift booms. They wait in the 50-degree heat all day.
En pleno sol, pues esperando que le den lo que quieran darle.
At the end of the route, there are a few houses in the middle of the desert. Olmeida and her family live here. In this desolate region, one resource is more expensive than fuel and more necessary than anything else: water.
El agua es demasiado. El agua es oro. El agua es oro. Es imposible conseguir agua.
In the Wayu tribe, finding water is primarily a task for the women. It's a daily chore. While the sun is still high in the sky, Olmeida and the other village women make the long journey to the well. The route leading to the well used to be a riverbed. Unfortunately, the riverbed dried up a long time ago. It may be hard to believe, but these children have never seen rain. It has not rained here for 5 years.
Caminar. Sí.
Caminamos hora y media porque como vamos con niños, pues la temperatura es altísima, de 40 a 43 grados.
After walking for an hour and a half, they finally reach the well.
Muchos kilómetros, este es el único, inmenso, grande, este es el que nunca se seca. Y este es el que está disponible los 12 meses del año.
The inhabitants have built a barrier around the well to protect it from animals. The Wayuu see this well as a blessing. However, it's salted water, barely drinkable. But it's still very precious to them. Almost 100 families are re-energized every day thanks to the efforts of these women.
La que trabaja más son nosotros las mujeres, trabajamos hace día y noche. Cargamos agua de aquí hasta a las 10 de la noche.
¿Tú te sientes triste?
Sí, bueno, por eso, por la necesidad del agua, pues. Si nosotros tuviéramos agua en la casa estaríamos felices. Pero ¿qué podemos hacer? No podemos abandonar aquí, en verdad, porque aquí nacimos, aquí vivimos, tenemos los padres, los abuelos, y aquí murieron, aquí enterramos, ¿y dónde vamos a agarrar? Porque no tenemos tierra para Bolivia, no tenemos en Venezuela, porque aquí nacimos y aquí moriremos, así.
It's time to turn back now. Another hour and a half walk just to get home.
¿Acá dónde están los hombres?
No están trabajando para otra parte. Otro está en Bolivia. Trabajan para la necesidad, para comer nosotros.
¿Y tu marido dónde está?
En Venezuela.
¿Y qué hace en Venezuela?
Trabaja allá.
Tata is one of the youngest women in the community, and she worries about the future for her 2 children. Like all of the children in the community, Tata's daughter goes to school on foot. She is one of the rare children in this desert that have the opportunity to study. There is no infrastructure in Guajira, no roads, and no school transport. Some children walk up to 2 hours to get to school. Their backpacks and their uniforms were provided by a humanitarian organization.
Buenos días. ¿Cómo amanecen? ¿Es que hay pijo, okay?
No.
¿Así she win?
No.
Ver esas nubes aquí en esta zona árida es lo más hermoso que hay. Que cae un palo de agua ahora.
On that day, there was a lot of thunder, but not a single drop of rain. Even the sky refuses to shed a tear for the fate of the Wayu people.